It's the end of week one and we've had a fantastic first week on site. We started to get a really nice, broad landscape characterisation of the development of this area, how this site developed over time, how this field itself came into existence. On top of that, the trench is starting now to get down to a level where we can see the features emerging. We're removing some of that overburden, some of that extra soil, and we're starting to really trace and get a sense of where the walls are going. Something that's incredibly special about this season, and we've just got to a point now where we're starting to see it emerging, is our experimental component. We started to build an iron smelting furnace, we started to build some salt production halves, and we've even got a small barbecue area where we can have a bit of lunch if necessary. Finally, we've got our geophysical survey up and running in the field just over there behind me, where we started to see a bank and ditch enclosure emerge and possibly another house structure. So all in all, we've had a fantastic first week. Next week, we're really looking forward to getting back into the features, trying to define them a bit more before we begin to characterise the real essence of what these structures are and what they could be.
We've had a really positive week this week. We've managed to open up the trench, we've cleaned back, taken off the overburden, and we've started to reveal a lot of archaeological features and targets which we'll show you in geophysics. Next week, I'm planning to do a survey over the wider area of this field, really trying to tie down the old ground surface and look at the sands and the gravels and really look at the site formation processes to try and determine how this landscape became much more managed and maybe raised above the marsh level. So that's really our target for next week, trying to put this trench into its wider landscape context.
Hi, well, it's good to be back out in the field again. As I'm not running the dig this year, Derek's directing the dig. It means I can focus in on doing some of the things I'm really interested in, which is looking at the geophysics. Myself and Derek did this whole field with our cart magnetometer. Some of the anomalies have now been excavated, so we can now investigate them further. And what I'm going to do shortly is I'm doing profiles down many of the ditch features to look at exactly where the responses are coming from and how that relates to this particularly deep overburden that we have on this site. So hopefully we can work out a little bit more about the archaeological landscape and that post-archaeological landscape, that post-depositional events that have occurred on the site that have buried the archaeology really quite deeply, about 40 centimetres down. Hi, so I've done the magnetic susceptibility readings down the profile of this ditch, and as I expected, as it's on other parts of the site, we've got increasing susceptibility with depth due to the effects of rain washing material down and leaching it, and then it gets concentrated towards the bottom of the ditch and then it drops off completely there. The interesting thing is that this profile of the ditch fill is the same as the areas on both sides, suggesting that this is not a fill, but the ditch was really quite shallow originally, perhaps only about that deep, and then this material has been imported in to build up the site. Now, it is thought that this material, which does occur at a lot of sites around Poole Harbour, is actually the remains of turf that was burnt to fuel salt production. And when it was left, you'd be left with the burnt material and soil, and that was brought onto sites like this to build them up from the natural profile that you can see down where the sand interface is, the natural sand, and build it up, and it's really changed this landscape, hasn't it, Harry?
Yeah, what we're thinking about really, which is talking about then, was the how this landscape has become modified. So we've got earlier on in the landscape history of a much more denuded landscape. So this sandy soil here, and then it's actually become modified due to enriching it with organic material, the waste product of an industrial process, and they're changing the use of this land from an industrial landscape into a more agricultural landscape. They're improving the soil, but we think they're also then extending it, or they're reclaiming the soil, reclaiming land from the marsh. So they're pushing out the boundaries, if you like, changing the use of it from an industrial to an agricultural landscape. And over the next few weeks, we'll start to map the interface or the horizon between this whiter sand to this much darker, richer organic soil, and that's what hoping that will be like an indicator or an analogue for this post-medieval, this medieval landscape change.